How concerning was a performance like that?
Well, the concern is that it's just a haunting familiarity about it, and that goes to coaches and coaching. And that third quarter, they had 19 inside 50s and kicked 1 goal too. So that's when they lost it. That's when they got smashed. Yet they still had 19 inside 50s. They still won territory, and the haphazard way they go forward is for a whole, supporter base and players, I'd imagine, and coaches. It's just. There's only North Melbourne have taken fewer contested marks inside 50 in the last 2.5 years. Only North Melbourne. Yet they continually bomb the ball in on top of a group of players that don't take contested marks. And Charlie Comden just sitting there going, I have every piece of that. That's what frustrates supporters the most and the players the most. And they're at a bit of a crossroad here. They really are. It's whether the style of game that they has held them in such good stead is getting passed by the kickers. And this is Charlie Comden. I can slow this down and dissect this, but if I haven't been doing this on the couch for the last 5 years, I'll go crazy. And yet, look at that. That's Charlie Spargo with Pink and Comden. And yet 19 times you go inside 50 in a third quarter, you kick 1 goal too and get your pants pulled down. So that's a coaching thing. Simon Goodwin will be here on Wednesday. That's a forward line group where you go, over the summer we think Van Rooyen, Fritsch, Turner, Jefferson and Johnson's going to do it. And I don't think it's going to do it.
And then what happened in the middle at the start of the last quarter? So this is the vaunted area of their game.
Yes, and not even at the start of the last quarter. I would suggest at the start of the game. And this is with the joy of North Melbourne, because this is the best part of Melbourne. It's Max and it's Jack and it's Christian and Clayton, and they got slaughtered in there. They got slaughtered. So they're a proud group. We've seen others respond this week in the manner that you'd hope, but question marks for them. It's their turn to sit under the bright light until such time as they can turn the dimmer on.
So we've had one that was highly promising against the Giants, and again, they were a whisker away from winning. Yep. And then we've had one that just hints that they're in quicksand a little bit.
Yeah, and the thing about the first round, we sat here and you said, what'd you like about it? I said, I liked that it was a bit different. They just regressed. They went back to being same old Melbourne, kicking on the head of a group of blokes that haven't taken a contested mark since David Neitz was playing.
Yep. Curious moment in the post-game, which we'll ask Simon Goodwin about on Wednesday, when he referenced the off-field for Max Gawn.
I think he'll acknowledge that he got beaten by a really good opponent today. But you also got to realise that, in life, there are other things that are going on. So, we'll support Max. He's a great person. He's a great leader. And, there's a backstory to everyone's performance. And Max is someone that we take enormous pride in, and he's going to continue to be a great leader for this footy club, and he'll be a big part of our response.
With the best of intentions, wise or unwise?
Unwise. And I suspect that he's doing it for all the right reasons. I love the players, the connection. He and Max are great and close. All that did was invite scrutiny and questions. And what I would say is Max has never, since I've been watching Melbourne, looked for an excuse. And I don't reckon Simon needed to provide one. He perhaps didn't. He just provided some grey area. So I'm sure Max will clarify it. Simon will when he comes in here. And I think that was a mistake.
A loss like that, we start to focus on things like the press conference.
It was a heavy loss.
Yeah, a heavy loss. And we caught this little grab from Simon Goodwin after the heavy loss against North Melbourne.
Our people are really important to us, and Max is one of those guys. And today, I think he'll acknowledge that he got beaten by a really good opponent today. But you also got to realise that, in life, there are other things that are going on. So, we'll support Max. He's a great person. He's a great leader. And, there's a backstory to everyone's performance.
What do you make of that, Bucks?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that come to mind. Firstly, I think Simon Goodwin's intent was in the right, and intention and heart was in the right place to support and defend his captain, a leader, a bloke that he's travelled the journey, a majority of the journey with. The two things that I think it was his agency. Like, was Max okay with that being said in the presser? I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have been aware of it. He may have, but we don't know. I don't think he would have. And the second one is, if you're going to start that around, a player had something going on off field and that affected his on-field performance, that speaks to professionalism and the expectations of every player that takes the field. So it's a slippery slope when you start talking about something that might be happening in someone's personal life that affects their on-field. Because part of being a professional, I don't mean to be callous about it, but part of being a professional is being able to compartmentalise and turn up for that group of people that you're with in that time.
Well, if you're being black and white, you're making an excuse for your captain. If you're being callous, you're making an excuse, and we don't like excuses, do we? As competitors, and the way it gets
portrayed. Come a long way. We've come a long way with the way that we view the players and what we expect of the players, and the fact that they're more than just the humans going and playing a game for us. But I just think if you're stepping into that space, I'd say a handful of players from every club every week have got something that they're dealing with in a personal sense off field. And half of your challenge as a professional is to front up and do that. As I said, I'm not being callous. I've got no idea what's going on in Max Gawn's life, and it might be truly significant. It must be for Goody to want to speak about it. But I would suggest that 18 coaches could mention that guy has something going on, and in the end, it's just brought a laser focus on. Every journo in Australia would be focused on, I've got to find out what's going on here. And I don't know if that helps Max either.
But that could happen, can't it? The coach can get caught on the hop. Like you would have been caught on the hop, wouldn't you? Where you go down a path and go, oh, geez, you're probably thinking in your mind, I probably shouldn't have gone down there.
Well, and I reckon when Goody walked out, he would have thought, and sometimes you get that, I didn't have to do that. And he's an experienced coach. And we'll hear from him on Wednesday on 360, and he'll be asked about it. He'll have something to say about it. But they've got a game to prepare for, and so is Max Gawn, and we've got lives. They've got lives to live, and they'll sort it out. We'll try and sort it out, but. It was just. I thought it just was interesting to me.
We're joined in the newsroom by John Ralph. Ralphie, what have Melbourne done over the last 24 hours to, deal with the Simon Goodwin comments?
Well, they've done absolutely nothing right now. They have bunkered down. But speaking of Melbourne insiders, to put it plainly, they're a bit shocked that this happened, of course, not only to any player on the list, but such an own goal from his coach. And in someone in Max Gawn who's had to go to hell and back defending every single player, including Simon Goodwin, after a really hellish 3 years. He had absolutely no idea that it was going to come. I'm sure that Simon Goodwin would have addressed it with him today and apologised in regards to it. But it's mind-boggling to think that 9 seasons, 180 press conferences. This is not his coach's first rodeo. He had to know better, and unfortunately, he just plainly misspoke. So the truth's really simple: a family health concern that won't require him to miss training sessions and has not in the past. Thankfully, Jess and the kids were there at the games, so they're not involved. But instead of having to work on a ruck battle with Jared Witts, tomorrow he will go into Triple N Radio. I'm sure he will be door-stopped. I'm sure he will say fairly little about the family health concerns that he is working through there. So instead of a day of recovery, instead of trying to work on arresting this loss slump, all of a sudden more distractions for a football club that, let's face it, has done pretty well to eat its own over the last couple of years. Another self-inflicted wound. So now we see what his coach says and what Max Gawn says, and then they try and get on the business with winning against the white-hot Gold Coast.
Thanks very much, Ralphie. Well, first, I think we wish Max's family the best. We have no interest in what's actually going on. But does this impact the relationship between Simon Goodwin and Max Gawn? Max had no idea that it was going to be said bucks, and now his public life is being paid out. His private life's being paid out in the public.
We assume that, but look, in the end, we've given it a couple of solid minutes here, and I reckon every footy show will give it a couple of solid minutes. And maybe in the end, it gets more airtime than it really deserves anyway. I think it'll be something that'll be cleaned up pretty quickly. But having said that, I reckon if Goody had his time again, he probably would have held his tongue.
There'd be a lot of respect for those two boys between each other. I'm sure it's something they'll get past.
There would be no issue whatsoever.
And it might have been, it was just, I think, trying to protect this player.
It's just unusual. It's just unusual. And it probably paints a picture that there are things going on in people's personal lives, but this is what these players have to deal with to be able to come out and perform. But if we talk about the relationship with Goody and Max, it is as strong a relationship that I've seen between a player and a coach.